First of all, thank you to all of you, Tina, Kualoha, Lisa, Monisha, for putting on this really important panel. I was struck by the ways in which there was some continuity in this, the importance of stories, whether they be in oral history or if they're in the mo'olelo or if they're in certain narratives that come from media, in conveying information about gender and how that information itself is gendered in important ways. And so I think that's really important for us to be thinking about as we're looking at these directions in our project of empowering our people and Oceania. To a almost completely different topic, but not. Disney's new princess, Moana, who's forthcoming. How would you suggest we think about that story in the context of those that you've given us? Well, what should we be worried about, or perhaps celebrating, or not? If you have any thoughts on that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you had to go there, huh? Okay, it's problematic because it's a lot more complicated than we'd like it to be. It would be great if it was outside writers, storytellers. It's not. There's a number of Pacific people involved, not just us. The YouTube competition of searching for the next Moana that's happening all across the Pacific, giving a different type of hope to movie stardom. Which is much more fleeting than the Gridiron Dreams, but it's one of the very, very tiny openings for women in the Pacific. Whale Rider being just one small example of a great female protagonist starring role. So it's going to be interesting because Disney and the rest of Hollywood and other movie producers have a long history of not doing it right and not doing it well, and they are at least giving initial illusion of trying to get it right, because there's a lot at stake on this. It's not just about the movie, it's about all the merchandising, which Frozen has showed can make a lot of people a lot more money than they realized. And one of my ongoing areas of contention is that whenever Hawaiian or any other indigenous concepts, values, language, symbolism, from tattooing to t-shirt designs is utilized, it never benefits our communities. It might benefit a couple of people who got the contract to write the script, or it might benefit the couple dozen people who are happily working at Aulani's Disney Resort in the Olelo Hawaii bar. But how do the rest of us benefit from that? I've long advocated for something like we are able as communities to trademark all of our languages and images, and anyone who wants to use it in any way, pay us back. And I don't want to or need to personally profit from that, but I sure would like it to go to Hawaiian language immersion education and preschools and other efforts that can help our communities in real meaningful ways. So that's my 2 cents for today on that.
I support that.
Thank you.
I have 2 girls, and I've spent a lot of money on Frozen merchandise. So, I mean, just thinking about that perspective, I absolutely agree. When you have this huge conglomerate like the Disney Corporation, right, how much control will you have over or input into the final product? Where does the money go, right? All the money that gets spent by parents like me for their kids. Is it going to go back into the communities from which these Pacific icons, storylines, et cetera, are taken? I doubt it. I mean, I haven't heard any plans for rechanneling those kinds of profits. And at the same time, I can imagine my 2 girls really being super excited about Moana, right? And having a different kind of a Disney figure, princess, whatever, warrior girl. I'm not really sure what the storyline is going to end up being, right? But having that as the costume that they get to wear, as the one that they, you know, because they're both in the super girly girl phase, which drives me nuts, but, you know, you just roll with it. So from that perspective, and, you know, seeing on, you know, sort of social media, people being really excited about, again, it's this kind of trap of recognition, I think, in the mainstream media, having that as a possibility that's coming down the pike for, you know, all people Pacific and sort of Pacific young girls, and that being a really kind of romantic and enticing possibility. So people are really excited about it, but I have the same kind of reservations, right? How many millions of dollars is it going to make, and is it actually going to be benefiting any of the Pacific communities beyond a sense of being recognized by Disney on the national stage? So, yeah.
Thank you very much for that wonderful panel. I really like that question Kai posed about Moana. And I like the answers about being really worried about this. I thought one of the things that was really important that came out was a bid to have us pay attention to the returns on the investments that we're doing, either in football or modern, for whatever good things, or whatever indigenous stuff that is continued in that. The question of the investment, the return on the investment, just keep with that metaphor, I think is more urgent than ever before, that we figure out a critical framework for calculating that. The stakes are higher than ever before. I'm especially nervous about Moana because it's Moana. You have the figures of gender and sexuality, but you're also talking about, well, the promise for the next 45 years for ethnic studies. It's an oceanic ethnic studies. So what's going to be appropriated with this particular commodification of Moana, and who owns that? It's a really big part of that, trying to figure out that calculus. Also, it's the you know, one of my friends from Fiji is saying, you know, that canoe, that waka looks like a Fijian Endura, you know, and but the question is also, for all of the good indigenous stuff and for all of that exciting stuff, the questions about who owns this stuff, whose is it, are even more and more urgent, right? James Cameron, we know, spent a little bit of time in the Marianas Trench and got all excited about traditional Carolinian navigators to the point where he's going to work that into the sequels of a really shitty narrative, right? That is going to be also about the ocean. So now we're going to have blue-skinned Carolinian navigators in that same old tired story, right? So more than ever, we need to figure out that how we calculate the return on the investments, but even more so, you know, those questions about what that product is, who owns it, all of that stuff. Thanks.
By the way, I just wanted to answer, chime in on that question, Ty, and that is a good question. I personally, I mean, I've watched the auditions, and it's a really tough one. You know, I watch it, and I see a lot of pride in the young women who are going up there, so I haven't really taken a hard line on it, but I think that the kind of questions you guys are posing, and Vince, the point about, you know, the return, how much on that return is I actually agree with that. So.
We are running out of time, but you know, maybe we could take all the questions and then you could sort of discuss it, because we have to set up for the next panel, which is on pedagogy. And as you could sort of discern from all these presentations, we work all of this in our teaching. So could all of you make your questions really brief, because I really want to hear from you. Okay.
First of all, Escrigasco, thank you very much. My question is sort of for Lisa and Christine. With Mosi Tutupu's diagnosis of CTE, the traumatic repetitive head injury, and the women who've had to care for him being the ones to talk about the diagnosis and the progression of his illness, I was curious how that might, reframe this idea of this Polynesian sports warrior, and is that is that alarm being raised by these people who do have to care for these injured athletes? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I thought it was really eye-opening for me to hear all these stories. But my question is for ualoha. I really, really like this idea of mana wahine. I never heard that phrase before. But I also was wondering why you kind of stay away from the term feminism. And then also, is there, I don't know your answer yet, but is there a role for feminism not only acknowledging past examples of mana wahine, but also coming up with new ways and new critiques of Hawaiian culture and patriarchy within that? So yeah. Oh, and within also the sovereignty movement, anti-colonialism.
Great question. Thank you, Lisa.
Appreciate the panel. First question, Lisa, for Lisa. Given the capitalist hegemonic weight of FBS and intercollegiate athletics and the NFL, what are your thoughts? I guess I want to hear you talk more about the prospects and challenges of the appropriation through the diaspora among this disproportionately high amount of particularly Samoan and Tongan athletes that are moving into the diaspora. Because you talked about this, this warrior image in the NFL, and I'm also thinking of the representation of Kanaka Maoli and Chamorro MMA fighters that are highly visible in the spotlight as well. So we maybe talk about that a little later. So that was my question of what are these kinds, in light of the weight of the hegemony in these particular industries, what are the prospects? And then my second question for Tina is, in my very preliminary observations and interviews that I've done very recently, particularly the generation of Chamorros that were part of the demilitarization of the build-up protests, around 2007 through 2010, and even recently, particularly in Pagat. What are the implications of your research for the women's role in those movements? Because these are Chamorro students that were radicalized earlier 2000s in the States, returned to Guam, led the movement, particularly We Are Guahan. And I'm noticing that they're contributing something I think that your work is onto. And I just wanted to hear more about maybe some reflections on their contribution in particular in what we would define as, or mark as, women's work with quotation marks. In other words, what they're doing in elementary schools in terms of storytelling for children. What are your thoughts on the indigeneity of that work? So again, we'll talk about later.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you very much to all of you. I have two questions. Firstly, for Lisa, are you expecting that after this book's finished, you'll be writing one about Polynesian women in sport? I'm thinking about role models like Beatrice Faumaina and Valerie Adams, who are exemplary sportswomen, but also great advocates for their communities and their people. And in the case of Beatrice, moved on from sport to developing careers where they're actually very public and great advocates for their communities and other professional capacities. And then the second comment is in relation to Moana. I've never been called a princess. But for those of you who don't know, my name is Moana, and I've been mistaken for a woman on many occasions, including a 2K sea swim where they announced the winner of the senior women's race as Moana Nepia. And so I stood up, and then they had to retract the award, take it away from me. But anyway, I was just remembering that another cousin, Moana Manipoto, made this fabulous film, Guarding the Family Silver, all about her encounter when going to Germany when, on the eve of a tour with her band, Moana and the Moor Hunters, she was lumped with a lawsuit because a German company had trademarked the use of her name in Germany for all sorts of products. And anyway, in this film, they trace back the whole origins of copyright, and it's a great yarn for any of you who haven't seen it. And it's on the internet, on Television New Zealand website. Anyway, I just wanted to share that with you.
What was the name of the movie again?
It's called Guarding the Family Silver. It's like a 50-minute doco in three or four parts. Yeah. And then the other thing that I just wanted to mention, that as far as using our taonga, including our names, yeah, and this is something that Moana discusses in that documentary, I'm all for the consultation and trying to get it the best that it can be. If it is going to be out there in the world, if we can have a say, there is potential to have win-win situations. There are incidences where there have been successful collaborations between creatives and people who want to commercialise some of our knowledge, Moontide fashion industry being one of them, PlayStation, again, the Mark of Cree thing. There's all sorts of things that have happened and have progressed beyond the purely exploitative beginning that they were. Yeah?
Well,
Kia ora.
right. Thank you so much. Big hand.
Thanks, Moana. Thank you guys.